Hi everyone, this Unit 2 revision video is on the topic of the Buddha's Nibbana. The learning outcomes for this video are to describe the events leading up to the Buddha's Nibbana and explain why the Buddha's Nibbana is important for Buddhists. Two key words for this video. The first one is Bodhi tree. What is the Bodhi tree? It is the tree under which Siddhartha was sitting when he achieved enlightenment. Buddha, very crucial key word. What does that mean? It means the enlightened one. It's a title which is given to Siddhartha Gautama after he achieved Nibbana. Okay, a quick recap. So Siddhartha grew up surrounded by luxury. He lived in 3 different palaces, one for the summer, one for the winter, and one for the rainy season. He had many servants who tended to his every need, and he had a beautiful wife. However, the direction of his life changed dramatically after he saw 4 sights. Those 4 sights are an old man, a sick man, a dead man, and a holy man. The first 3 of those shocked him in different ways, and the 4th inspired him to look for a solution to the problem of suffering. So he left his palace life behind, he cut off his hair, he exchanged his princely robes for the robes of a beggar, and then, after he had done that, he practiced asceticism, which is extreme self-denial. So it is said he hardly ate anything at all for a period of about 6 years, only enough to continue living, only enough to survive. However, after 6 years, he realized actually this wasn't achieving very much of anything at all. All it had done was make him physically weak, so he decided to accept and eat the food offered to him by a local village girl. When he did this, the 5 companions that he had had over the last 6 years of his life decided to leave him. They felt betrayed. They thought he had sold out, given up the fight for enlightenment. Why is this part of the Buddha's life important? Well, in a way it's important because the Buddha rejected this way of life, and without having lived it, he couldn't reject it fully. So he, it is said, practiced asceticism to a greater degree than anyone had done up to that point in history, but decided actually that this was not the way to achieve enlightenment. And by rejecting that way of life, he discovered the middle way between the extreme of luxury on the one hand and asceticism on the other. So this middle way between those 2 extremes enabled him to achieve enlightenment. So this at the top is a statement from an exam question, a D question. People can learn nothing from the ascetic practices of the Buddha. So with D questions we need 2 sides to an argument. The Buddha himself rejected extreme ascetic practices, so that supports the statement. Also, Buddhists today likewise reject extreme asceticism. And asceticism is not part of the middle way, the Buddhist way to enlightenment. However, on the other hand, without living the life of an ascetic, the Buddha would not have discovered the middle way. So you can say that there is something to learn from it. Also, looking at the Buddha's example, Buddhists can avoid the error of asceticism. So you can learn something from it, basically learn that it's an error that you should avoid. Also, this part of the Buddha's life shows that enlightenment, the path to enlightenment, is not always easy, and so not to get discouraged if times are tough. So the arguments on the previous slide should prepare you pretty well for answering this D question were it to come up again. It came up last year in 2012. Just replay the video if you think that you need to in order to feel fully confident about answering that exam question. Okay, so what happened next? Well, after the Buddha rejected asceticism, he decided to meditate under the Bodhi tree. That's him meditating there. As he did that, it is said Mara, who is the Buddhist equivalent of the devil, there are quite a lot of differences, but we can say broadly speaking, roughly speaking, the Buddhist devil tried to distract him away from enlightenment. First of all, he sent his 5 daughters to try and seduce him away from enlightenment. That didn't work, so he sent various terrifying visions to try and scare Siddhartha away from enlightenment, and that didn't work either. And so Siddhartha remained steadfast in his meditation, in his concentration, and eventually achieved enlightenment. And from that moment on, he was known as the Buddha, the Enlightened One. So those are the events leading up to the Buddha's Nibbana, so we can give that learning outcome the Mr. Powers tick. If we move on to our second learning outcome, explain why the Buddha's Nibbana is important for Buddhists. Well, firstly, the Buddha, when he achieved Nibbana, discovered the answer to the problem of suffering, which was the quest which he had undertaken 6 years earlier. The Buddha gained perfect wisdom, that's what Buddhists believe, when he achieved Nibbana, and so could teach others the way out of suffering. Also, every single teaching of the Buddha was inspired by the experience of enlightenment. That's what all of the Buddha's teachings are about. They're about suffering, the cause of suffering, and how to achieve the end of suffering. Also, if Siddhartha had not achieved enlightenment, Nibbana, he would not have become known as the Buddha, and Buddhism itself as a religion might never have existed. It probably wouldn't have. Okay, so we should be able to, with that previous slide with those bullet points, be able to explain why the Buddha's Nibbana is important for Buddhists. So I'm going to give that Mr. Powers tick. And so that's pretty much the end of the video. Thank you for listening.